Good evening, everyone. Welcome to my live. I am live today so we can talk about interstate planning 101. I have my guest here, attorney Ron, and I just want to introduce you a little bit about Ron. Ron had to graduate from the University of Oklahoma College of Law, and he then moved to Texas. He has been licensed in Texas since 2003. During the last 10 years, he has focused on interstate planning primarily, and he is married and has two adult daughters along with two grandsons. So attorney Ron is going to share some information about interstate planning 101. Ron, you have the mic now. Oh, we can't hear you. Let's see. Mic settings. Hmm. All right, you all. We just having a little technical difficulties. Ron will be with us in a few moments. He's coming back.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
I am sorry.
Oh, it's
Thanks for
okay.
that introduction, Charmaine.
You're
I'm
welcome.
happy to be with folks in Georgia and Alabama. Thankfully, you won't complain about me talking too slow. That's what I get from some of the folks up north. So uh, glad to be here and may get overexcited on some of this stuff, but bear with me. It's just really a passion of mine. Uh, in the last 10 years, I've dealt with some things in life, medically and otherwise. And I just think it's so important. And I want to share this with your audience that there's two documents that you need, every adult should have. And the first one is a statutory durable power of attorney. In your state, it's just called a power of attorney, but any attorney will know what you're talking about, or if you do a search, you'll find it. Uh, Statutory power of attorney. The benefit of having that document in place and what you do with that is that you name an agent, either a trusted family member or friend, and that person then can step into your shoes and take over and handle your financial affairs when you can't. So maybe, God forbid, things happen every day, but perhaps you're in a car accident tomorrow and you're put in the hospital for several months. Uh, well, then somebody could step in and they could stand right in your shoes and they could deal with your bank. They could deal with the IRS. They could deal with whatever else may come up. Things come up every day that we deal with and we just forget about them because it's almost a routine. And let's take it a step further and let's say that that hospital visit turns into a year. What happens then? What if you don't have that document in place right now? The only option left for your family is to generally go into court and have a guardianship proceeding take place and then be named as your guardian. And as you can guess, that's much more expensive than simply having a power of attorney drafted by a local attorney. Um, so that's one document, and that handles your financial affairs. And I'm going to talk generally here because each state is a little different. Georgia merges things a little together, but I'm going to talk about a document we call a medical power of attorney. Very similar to the general statutory power of attorney. This one handles medical affairs and it names an agent to communicate your medical desires, whatever those may be, uh, at the point that you can no longer communicate your desires to your doctor or the hospital. So, again, same situation. what happens? Sometimes doctors are left fiddling around trying to figure out who is the one that can make decisions. Who do we call? I mean, they can always uh, give you emergency treatment. That's not an issue. But what about other treatments? What if, God forbid, you end up in a coma, or a step further, you're diagnosed with cancer, and I've seen this happen. You're diagnosed with cancer, you end up in the hospital, and you haven't put the documents together that say, if I die within 6 months with everything you can throw at me, I don't want it. Just let me go. And in the medical power of attorney document, you merge in a healthcare directive. And I won't go into this too deep, but basically, you've named your agent. Below that, you've indicated what your wishes are. I, in a terminal condition, given every means of life support, I'm going to die in 6 months, you believe. You check the box and say, I don't want artificial means. It's typically another box, and that's for those that are in an irreversible condition
Mm.
that is not expected to ever change, where you can say, I do not want artificial means. Now, if you're laying there and you're alive and they don't need to hook you up to anything, it doesn't change that, but it keeps them from putting you on a respirator. It'll keep them from actually giving you IV nutrition, putting feeding tubes in, uh, or uh, using artificial means to bring you out of a cardiac arrest. In one example, let's think of somebody at age 85, say my grandma, who's already passed, but when she came closer to death,
Mm.
she would not have wanted to go into the hospital and have her ribs cracked from CPR and then be shocked back alive and wake up, and instead of being in heaven, she's still sitting in this old hospital. So those are the two documents I push, and that's something that everyone should have.
Okay.
But now I'm going to kind of walk down the path of a will and what does that mean? How does that work? So we've all heard last will and testament or daddy's got a will. So we kind of know what that is. That's where somebody, you can write on paper and decide where your property is distributed when you die. And you decide that, not the state. If you don't put a will together, then the state has one put together for you,
Mm.
but it may not follow your desires. So we put the will together, and you kind of think of it like this sometimes. Well, daddy went and saw the attorney, and he signed that will in front of two witnesses and a notary, put it over there in that fireproof box, and he told us if he died, go get my will out of there and it'll tell you how to split things up, and then you kids split it up and go on your merry way. Well, it's not how it happens. A
Mm.
will has no legal effect until a probate judge has deemed that it matches, that it follows the formalities of your state in regards to
Mm.
that will. And so you're into something called probate then.
Mhm.
The probate process opens up a lot of different avenues where things can get drug out for months, if not years. Uh, they can
Mhm.
also, it's a really challenging time for people. They're going through the most tragic time in their life, and then they're having to go into court. And if there's any kind of weird things going on, by that I mean maybe a disinherited child, or we'll say a just unknown child out there somewhere. Uh, Things can get real messy, and by that they get real expensive real fast, and that money all comes out of your estate. So instead of your money going on to your intended people, it's set there to pay attorneys to fight off these challenges. So is there an option? Yes. Uh, the option is a revocable living trust. Uh, and, there is times where a simple will, depending on how much property you have, a simple will takes care of things. So
Mhm.
I don't want to be saying and trying to sell people that your only option is a revocable living trust. But a lot of people used to think trust was just for the rich people, the millionaires,
Right.
and the reality is everybody can benefit from a trust. Sometimes it's a balance of what would I pay if I went to probate, because with a trust you bypass probate. But I kind of want to explain a trust. So if you'll go down this path with me just a little bit,
Mm.
when you was a kid, you probably had a little red wagon, radio flyer, I think they called them, little red wagon you pull around. If not, you had a play school, whatever, but you had a wagon and you pull it around and you put your toys in that wagon and you had the handle and you took it where you wanted those things to go. Well, picture the trust as being that wagon. Everything in that wagon avoids probate. Anything
Right.
outside the wagon goes through probate, but you're in charge of it. So a revocable, and that's the key word there, revocable living trust means you set a trust up, which is this kind of separate entity, that wagon,
Mhm.
but you control it. And you can put things in it, take them out, you can do whatever you want with it. Uh, One of the challenges sometimes people have is they take the house out of it and sell it a decade after they created it, maybe,
Mhm.
and buy a new retirement house, and they forget to deed it back into the trust. So it's not in the wagon anymore. But along with this analogy, if you're the owner and you're pulling the wagon, you become incapacitated, you've named a successor trustee, maybe again, a family member, trusted friend, whoever that may be, and they pick up the handle in the wagon and take off as though nothing's changed. You've already notified your bank of who the successor trustees are, and so they have the ability to deal with your financial affairs, sell your house if that became necessary. I'm not saying it would be, but we never know. Maybe we get to a situation where we need long term care, and for people in advanced age or even young people, uh, and we need to sell the house. Well, that trustee can step in, pull that wagon, and do that. And just as, or even more important, when you die, and I'll be frank here, the trust doesn't care. In the eyes of the wagon, somebody picked the handle up, the successor trustee, and took the wagon down the road, and the trust dictates what happens upon your death or you and your spouse. So typically, if you and your spouse set one up jointly, then one of you may pass. Well, the other one controls things until he or she passes. Then,
Mhm.
when both have passed, they've listed out how they want their property distributed. And at that point, so if they've passed, then the trustee steps in and distributes everything. But they also have the option to say, no, I don't want it distributed at my death. I want it held by my son, and then he's going to pass it to my two grandkids once they get old enough and under the following rules. So it gives you a level of control. It's private. If you go to probate, everything you file in probate court is public record, so anyone can go in and look at that. A trust is not, it's private. Um, Depending on where you're at, you'll spend $2,000 to $5,000 on a trust. You'll probably spend that or more in probate. So for a lot of my, especially for my senior adult clients, they typically look at it as this is my way to streamline affairs so that my kids can come in, no need to go to court for anything, step in, take over, and they don't have to mess with any of that stuff.
Right.
So,
I have a question.
yes,
I hear that you put a house in a trust, you are lifting off the tax responsibility when that person dies. Is that true?
I will tell you that uh, I can't speak specifically to Georgia law. As a
Hmm.
Texas attorney, this should all be deemed for educational purposes only. So I'm not giving legal advice to you. But I
Right.
would say in Texas that when you place the property in trust, then it still maintains a homestead exemption.
Okay.
It does not trigger a due on sale clause that some mortgages have. Now,
Hmm.
that is federal.
Okay.
As to the state property tax, I would generally say that you would consult with your local attorney. My guess is that as long as you are the grantor, that you created the trust and
Hmm.
it's holding the house, all exemptions remain. At the
Okay.
time of death, that may change. Does that somewhat answer the question for you?
Yes.
Uh, any questions maybe popped up in the group? I don't,
I don't see any.
okay.
Um
Uh, I do usually end with this, and this is kind of a idea that I just thought of. I'm in a group of about 3 to 4 thousand estate planning attorneys nationwide, and so I tell people that if they want to reach out to me or reach out to me through you,
mhm.
give me a city name and a state name. I can find them a good estate planning attorney within a matter of probably 24 hours. I probably have 5 names within 24 hours. So I would say, DM you or DM me, however they want to do that. Um, and I can find them somebody that, if nothing else, takes care of those 2 documents. More importantly, though, could put a plan together so that when that event happens and we're all going to go, everything is buttoned up and it's either handled through a will and the attorney has advised of ways to bypass probate without a
Yeah.
trust, or we put it in a trust and use that to bypass. Uh,
Makes sense. It sounds like an investment that we all should take part of,
it
whether we
is.
do it now or later, so
That's
that
the thing. It's kind of like you pay it
Mhm.
now or your
Mhm.
family pays it later.
Right.
Kind of like funerals, you know.
Hmm.
Any other questions you might have?
No, I don't see any questions in our live. But if I see some in the replay, I'll make sure that we'll get those questions to you, and
Okay,
I can redirect the answers to anybody that have any in the replay.
that'd be great. And right now, I'm lurking in your group.
Mm-hmm.
So if
Hmm.
somebody comments in there and has a question,
Right.
I one way or another, we can get them placed with somebody over in wherever they live, somewhere near them. So,
Absolutely.
well, I've enjoyed this evening. I hope that the folks in your group find it informative, and I hope it benefits them some. A lot of people in the past I've found thought signing a will, well, now that's valid, that's it. But there's a lot of misconceptions out there, and it's hard to get an attorney that you can just go ask some questions of. And I'm fair game for that too, with that same disclaimer that I'm not advising somebody in Georgia, but I can give them some general information. Uh, if that
Absolutely.
makes sense. So
Yes.
thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it, Charmaine.
Thank you for coming on my live and giving us value information.
Oh yeah,
So, um, if there's not any questions now, if y'all catch the replay, you have any questions, please leaving in the comments so we could get you those answers that you're looking for. Again, he is an attorney in Texas, but he is in a group of other attorneys where they have access to this information as far as interstate planning. So we're going to end this live run again. Thank you for joining me this evening, and we will see you all, or I will see you all next week. So thank you, and y'all have a good evening.
You bet. Thanks for having me. Talk to
You're
you
welcome.
soon.
Talk to you
Bye,
soon.
Charmaine.
Bye.